In 2006, the news of a school shooting at a one-room schoolhouse in the old Amish community of Nickel Mines in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, rippled across the world. But it was the community's response to the murderer and his family, forgiveness, generosity, reconciliation, and love that led to a national conversation about this otherworldly response to tragedy. Who are the Amish? What kind of people react to suffering this way? Why did they take the commands of Scripture so seriously when many professing Christians see the command as optional? Tonight on State of Independence, I want you to meet someone who spent her life helping a curious world understand the ways of her Amish neighbors and the values of a simple life. Stay with us. Every year, tens of thousands of us travel Pennsylvania's back roads in search of the postcard scenes of daily life at the farms, schools, shops, and churches that harken back to early America. Horses and buggies, children on scooter bikes, clotheslines hoisted to roofline, and a manner of food, dress, and conversation that's simple and uncomplicated. What we know of the Amish is often wrong, shaped by reality shows, movies, and our own imaginations. But while we don't really know much about the people who've decided to sit out much of the industrial age, the world wars, and now the age of social media, smartphones, and autonomous vehicles, there's something about their life that calls us to examine our own. My guest tonight, Susan Hougelman, lives in western Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh, and she's developed a bond of trust and friendship with many in the Amish community. Today, she's spending her life introducing those friends to us with private tours and books like this one, Inside the Simple Life. Find inspiration among the Amish. Susan, it's wonderful to have you on State of Independence. What a blessing. Let me begin by asking you, why the Amish? How did you arrive at this subject? I don't think you were raised in the Amish community, were you?
I was not, Joe. Yeah. So my story, I have an amazing story to tell. So I used to own a restaurant in the community of New Wilmington. My husband and I owned a restaurant that was built in 1931. It's a very historical place. And has been a restaurant, it was built in 1849 and has been a restaurant since 1931. But my husband and I bought the restaurant about 15 years ago. And I was the hostess of the restaurant. I'm a people person. So I love meeting new people and I loved being the hostess of the tavern and the greeter of the tavern. And every day that I would work at the restaurant, Joe, people would come in and they would ask me this question. They would say, "Excuse me, ma'am, where can we go see the Amish in your area?" And every day I'd tell them the same thing. I'd say, "Oh, you just have to drive around and look for them." Because the Amish here in my community of New Wilmington, they live here, they work here, Joe, but there's really no tourism centered around the Amish. But every day people kept coming into the restaurant asking where they could see the Amish. And every day I'd tell them, "You just have to drive around and look for them." But I'm a businesswoman, Joe. I saw an opportunity. I saw a need that wasn't being met. People from all over the world wanted to see the Amish, and we had no place to send them in New Wilmington. So one day a little light bulb went off in my head. And one day someone came into the restaurant and said, "Susan, where can we go see the Amish?" And this time I said, "Get in my car. I'm going to take you to see the Amish." But the funniest thing is, Joe, I'd never talked to an Amish person.
Wow.
It sounds crazy, but the Amish really separate themselves from the English world unless they do business with you.
What's the English world? The English world
is us, and anyone that's not Amish is called English according to the Amish. Yeah. So they separated themselves from our world. So what I did is I had a friend that did do business with the Amish community, and I asked her if she would take me around and show me all the little Amish businesses that existed in my community. I'd never been to an Amish business, and I've lived here just about my whole life. So she took me around and showed me a little Amish grocery store, a furniture maker, a quilt shop, and I couldn't believe what existed here in my own community that I had no idea. So she introduced me to the owners of the little stores, and I simply asked them this question. I said, "Would you mind if I bring people to see your little business? I think this business is really awesome. Do you think I could bring other people to see this?" And every single Amish business owner said, "Sure, that would be okay." So that's how I got my foot in the door. That's how I got started. And so people would come into my restaurant, they would ask where they could see the Amish, and I would just get someone to replace me as hostess, and I would take them to these little Amish businesses. Well, because I didn't know much about the Amish, I just started reading about them. I started getting books and reading on the internet. So my very first tour speech was really just what I learned on the internet about them. And as I came to get to know, as I got to know them better, I realized a lot of things I were telling people weren't even right. There's a lot of misconceptions about the Amish. So the more I got to know them, the more I visited, the more I became friends with them, the more I realized that they are just such an amazing group of people. And I just started falling in love with the Amish community. And my husband and I sold our restaurant 9 years ago, and I started this business called Simple Life Tours 9 years ago. And that is my full-time business now. And I love the Amish community, and I love meeting people from all over the world that I take on these tours.
So what was it that made you fall in love with them? Was it their kindness, or their welcoming, the fact that they welcomed you without judgment? They obviously
Joe, it's
know
everything.
Yeah, they would know
It's
you weren't part of
everything.
you're not part of their community as such, and
I
so
am
you're not.
definitely Yes, I am definitely not Amish. I am an outsider they truly have welcomed inside. And it started off as just as a business relationship, me going to their businesses and showing people their business. But the more I started visiting them, and they started inviting me into their lives. And what I would do is, the Amish in our area are not allowed to go into a restaurant unless they're invited by an English person. They feel that would be very wasteful of their money to go and sit down in a restaurant. So owning a restaurant was an amazing blessing from God for me, because it enabled me to build a relationship with the Amish community. I would invite a different family to my restaurant, usually once every week or once every 2 weeks, and feed them and get to know them that way over a meal. So we started getting to know each other, and pretty soon they started inviting me to their homes for meals. And when we sold the restaurant, they would come to my house, and we celebrated holidays together. We started going on vacation with Amish families, truly developing this amazing love relationship.
Now they don't watch television. They don't follow social
They
media.
don't.
They wouldn't know that
They
you
don't.
tweeted about them or put them on Instagram or Facebook.
Well, they do know. People show them often, because I run a pretty big site on Facebook called Simple Life in New Wilmington, PA. It probably has about 43,000 maybe followers. And so I write stories about my life with the Amish on there. And a lot of Amish are shown my stories by their friends, by their drivers, by people they work with. And they're very welcoming. They know I respect them and love them and honor them. And so they're very appreciative of the way, the goodness I do to them, and the kindness.
So
and the love
what would you say is the if we could call it the Cliff Notes version of the Amish? I mean, most people who are curious. I mean, here it is. So many people in the world self-identify as Christian. We all do. We're believers, followers of Christ. Amish people are followers of Christ. But their following of Christ calls them to do things differently than perhaps many of the other denominations do. They don't watch television. They don't use cars. They don't listen to the radio. I guess they don't buy the newspapers. The local newspapers aren't really of interest to them. I imagine they probably don't vote. So they don't participate that way either in the political process the way we might. I know they don't participate in the draft or in wars. There's a lot they don't do that other Christian groups do. What makes them special? What is? I guess if there's a secret sauce as such, what's special about them? What is it that And there is not a lot of defection either. There aren't a lot of people who are raised in the Amish tradition, who as Christian people who are also Amish, who say, you know what, I'm going to leave. Some do, but a very, very small percentage of them ever leave the community to which they're born. What is that? Tell me if you can, if you're able to encapsulate it. What is that?
I'm actually going to clear up some misconceptions that you just spoke right there, Joe. And I've really been praying about what God has put, that God puts the right words in my mouth to say. First of all, the Amish are an amazing group of people. The reason why the Amish shun modern technology is because they don't want sin to come into their lives. Anything that would cause them to sin, they cast out. So they'll use a phone. They have little phone booths that they'll go up and use a phone for business, or if there's a medical emergency. They do read local newspapers. They're not allowed to have subscriptions to newspapers, local newspapers, but they do. They're allowed to purchase a newspaper, and that's how they do get a lot of their news. They have Amish newspapers, and then they have local newspapers that they read, and they do vote. At least our Amish in our community, for the last couple elections, Joe, they felt that their religious liberties were in jeopardy, and they felt that it was very important to cast their vote. So they did vote. A lot of them voted in the last couple elections. So that's some misconceptions that people have right there about the Amish. They are passive, so they would never harm another human being or individual. So if they are drafted into the war, the military, they are conscientious objectors, and they would be given jobs that they wouldn't have to fight or harm another person. Now, as far as their religion, Joe, I'm gonna share something with you that a lot of people might not know. The Amish they are definitely Christ followers, but the Amish do not believe the same that I do as a Christ follower. I believe that Jesus died as a free gift to me, and there's nothing I can do to earn it. I'm saved by God's grace. We're all sinners, saved by grace alone. But the Amish, for the most part, believe that it's works that get you to heaven, that living a hard life, a hard-working life, and being good, being righteous is, and they hope that that would be good enough to get them to heaven. And I didn't realize that, because they do, Joe, live such an amazing biblical life. They put Christians to shame in the way they live. And I've actually changed my life because of the Amish. I have been a Christian for 30 years, and by watching the Amish, how they put family first. They take care of their elderly. People are so much more important to them than making money or living a life full of vacations and fancy cars. They really do live a very simple and humble life. But the Amish are a mission field, Joe, that people don't know about. And God has used me in the most incredible ways, because you're not allowed to proselytize to the Amish people. I don't know if you know this, but they're not allowed to read an English Bible. The only Bible they're allowed to read is an old German Bible written in a language that most Amish don't understand. So their life is based on tradition and what their elders teach them.
Do the Amish where you live still speak the German language?
They speak a language called Pennsylvania Dutch,
Right.
and it's their own language. Yes, it's a form of Swiss, German, and English, all mixed together to make their own language. And it's just a spoken language. They don't read or write Pennsylvania Dutch, they just speak it. So their language of their Bible is even different than the language they speak daily. It's an old German language that they learn in school in 5th through 8th grade, but they don't understand it too much. So they don't understand, a lot of them don't, they understand certain scriptures that they're taught, but they don't understand the whole Bible. So God has used me in amazing ways as a missionary to the Amish, because you can't proselytize to them. They don't allow that, but you can just be Jesus's hand and feet to them. You can pray with them, and I tell them a lot what God has done in my life, and I, pray with them and over them. And so it's all about the relationship, loving them like Jesus loves them. So their life, I tell people on my tours that their life is an oxymoron. They do live an amazing biblical life. Like I said earlier, they put us Christians to shame in many ways, but they're also a mission field. And if they only knew that they didn't have to work so hard, they don't have to earn their way to heaven. That would be just an amazing,
Yeah, yeah,
amazing.
yeah. That's really fascinating to know.
Yeah,
It's
a
a
lot of
challenge
people
for a
don't
lot
know
of Christians. I mean, the fine line between, of course, the grace that's given to us. We don't earn our way to heaven. It's a
that's
free
right.
gift of God, and yet and still
Oh,
we're called upon to. There's the verse that says, "Faith without works is dead." That clearly, if you do have this faith, if you have this relationship with Jesus, and you follow Him, that there's some evidence of it by how you conduct yourself, by the way you treat people around you. And that's
that's right.
the one thing that I love about the Amish. I mean, the story that I quoted in the opening about what happened at Nickel Mines when that gunman came in and killed those kids, and then I guess he killed himself. And the love that the Amish people who had lost their own children had for that murderer, for the man who committed the murder, and for his family, the forgiveness in their hearts for him, and their willingness, without anybody telling them to do so, to care for that family, to take up an offering so he could be buried properly, is just
Oh,
amazing, and really bespeaks what the kind of love that's clearly in the hearts of so many of the Amish people, certainly the ones in Nickel Mines, Pennsylvania. I love that story because I think of all the rest of us who call ourselves Christians and how we deal in the world. Every day on the news we see, sadly, these terrible stories about people's lives being taken, and for most of us, we have no sense of mercy for any of those people who have committed these crimes. We want to see them get everything that's coming to them and then some, and Christian people as well are just as quick to pass judgment and quick to not forgive. Forgiving is a hard thing. As we all know. I mean, it's easier said than done. People do things to us, and it's hard for us to forgive us. But we're called upon to do just as the Lord does for us. He forgives us, and then lets it go. And if we have that same love in our heart, we're called upon to do the same. And that's what I love about the Amish, which is so different from the rest of the world, the outside Christian world. Where it's customary to judge people and put them in prison and throw away the key and not care about them anymore. And these Amish folks who would never harm anybody else would even have love in their heart for somebody who murdered their own kids. That's the love of Christ, who was on the cross being crucified, and as he was being crucified said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Oh, that kind of forgiveness would be in my heart. I'm still praying that I could be that way, and I just so admire that about the Amish people. Susan, when we come back, I want to ask you about what's in your new book, Inside the Simple Life. And I also want to ask you how your faith in Jesus has been strengthened or changed because of your work and your study. Stay with us.
You're watching Joe Watkins' State of Independence on Lighthouse TV. Positively different. Share your comments about today's program in the comment box at joewatkins.org.
Well, Susan's book is available on Amazon.com, and you can reach out to her directly at simplelifetours.com. Susan, I'm just so amazed by this. I'm so happy to know that as somebody who was not raised in the Amish tradition, you were welcomed in by your Amish neighbors and invited to come to their businesses, and that when you invited them in turn to come to your restaurant and then eventually to your home, they were willing to do so. What does an Amish family look like these days? Is it still, I mean, the picture that most of us have is because so much is agriculture and business that the families tend to be large in number. Tell us what they look like these days, and what does a 21st century Amish family look like these days?
Sure, Joe. They definitely have larger families for the most part. In our community, it's 5 to 8 children would be average. Less and less farming. The Amish in our area used to mostly be dairy farmers, but that's become less and less because they can't make a living farming. They can't compete with corporate farmers anymore. So more carpentry work, anything working with their hands. But in our area, most of the Amish here are woodworkers, carpenters, house builders, furniture makers. But they still dress in the very conservative. Our Amish here in New Wilmington are called Old Order Amish. They're the second strictest Amish groups in the world. So they are still very conservative here. They drive horse and buggy. They dress in their Amish clothes.
Is that mostly black? Mostly black?
No. The Amish in our community wear blue. These Amish wear a lot of blue. So the men wear blue denim trousers and blue cotton shirts, and the women wear shades of blue and purple in our community.
Yeah. That's
and always the head covering.
Is there? I mean, tell me. So I know the reason for not being involved with the outside world is to avoid sin. There's lots of sin in the world, obviously, lots of temptation. For the younger Amish people, for the kids growing up, is it a challenge for them to not want to be a part of the larger world? And if somebody from their community decided they wanted to join your church, would that be heresy, or would that mean that they'd be frowned upon, or maybe even tossed out of the Amish community? Is it possible to be tossed out of the community?
Oh yeah, that I believe that's what separates the Amish from most of the world, is they do still believe in shunning and excommunication. So if you don't adhere to their rules and laws, the Amish live by a set of rules called their ordnung. That lists all their laws and rules. And if you don't follow and adhere to those rules and laws, you are shunned or excommunicated. And that means you can't talk to another Amish person, including your own family members. You can't sit at the same table as them, or you can't exchange money with them. Now, they'll always welcome you back into the fold, but most people that leave, it's hard for them to come back. We're spoiled. The Amish are born into this life. It's all they know, living without electricity, without modern plumbing, without hot showers. But once they get used to modern luxuries, we're spoiled in life. It's hard to give that up. But yes, they still believe in shunning here. And as a lot of people ask me that, because the Amish do let their children come, and I have some Christmas parties for Amish children and Easter egg hunts, and they are allowed to come to my home. And many people ask me, don't they long for that? Don't they desire, if they see your TV or your Christmas tree, don't they want that? And it just fascinates me. And it's so amazing that they don't long for the outside world. My Amish friends, they think we have it rough, Joe. They say, one of the things my Amish friend said, Lizzie said to me a couple years ago, she said, Susie, it just seems like English people have such a hard time being happy. You always seem to want more, to need to do more things, to go more places, to have newer and brighter, where the Amish are taught to be happy and satisfied and grateful for the little they do have. So they don't envy us. They feel so, I believe, as friends to them, they feel sorry for us. They see the anxiety and stresses that people have. And people that take my tour, we often talk about how our world is so full of stress and anxiety, and the Amish don't have that, not like we do. They have such a slow pace of life. They're taught to be grateful for what they have, and they're all about people. We value nice things and money, but the Amish value each other and people, and it keeps them from being lonely and from straying. So they have each other, which it's hard to walk away from that. That's why in our community, 98% of all Amish stay Amish.
Wow. Well, it just goes to show you, I suppose, that the things that matter most in this life are things that money can't buy. And it's a hard lesson for most of us to ever realize. But Susan, I'm so excited about your book. I hope that everybody watching will buy it and read it and learn more about the simple life. It's been a delight having you on the program. God has certainly blessed the conversation you're leading about ways to understand the special families who make up the Amish communities here in Pennsylvania and around the country. Thank you for sharing your work with us in State of Independence.
Thank you, Joe.
We'll be right back with closing thoughts with our great producer, Jeff Coleman.
Learn more about Joe Watkins and the mission of this program at joewatkins.net. And tell Joe what you thought about today's program in the comment box.
So now let's talk to our great producer, Jeff Coleman.
So what we're encouraging all of our viewers today is to throw their phones away and to cancel social media and the cable. Well, don't cancel cable. I hope this conversation was helpful. I think a lot of times when we talk about people who feel and act more spiritual, that they've got it together, but realizing that Scripture isn't essentially a rule book or a manual on how to run your life. It is clues to a relationship and being invited to be part of a grander story, which isn't about us and isn't about, as you said, our tally sheet of good works and this understanding of people who seem to do it perfectly in many ways and have eliminated all the distractions. What Susan said is, hey, there's more to it. And what I don't know if you caught what she said. She goes, this is my mission field. Yeah. To be able to take what you think you know about God and what He expects of you and say, there's real freedom, though, in understanding that He doesn't expect you to get to heaven by hitting a list of check boxes.
Right. And at the same time, I was fascinated by what Susan said about how they look at us. You know, the Amish. Yeah. I think most Christian people driving through an Amish community would say, you know, oh, look at them. You know, isn't that nice? But boy,
I'd love to take them shopping.
I'd like for them to see some real clothes.
But they're missing out.
Yeah, they're missing out on all this stuff they don't have. Right. I'm in a car. They're in a horse and buggy. You know, I've got the latest outfit on. Yeah. I look really sharp. Right. And I've got designer sunglasses, and here's this person with a hat on.
And air conditioning.
Yeah, and I've got air conditioning. They're in a horse and buggy, and it's hot.
Yeah.
And you say, man, I feel so sorry for them. And she said, no, it's the other way around. They feel sorry for us. Right. They look at us and say, boy, these poor folks who are beaten down by all the pressures of the world, who feel so compelled to conform, and who are fighting almost like crabs in a barrel to have stuff that ultimately won't matter. That's it. And that's a great point. Right. I mean, we all crave this stuff. Why do we work? You know, why do we take pride in where we live, or the kind of house we live in?
And we'll think about we've done shows on this before, all of the ways that we try to squeeze productivity out of the minutes of the day. So we have squeezed out sunrises and sunsets and walks, breathing, reading, people, things that matter. Yeah. And so I think there's a lot to be learned. I'm glad Susan is there, and her book and her blog are fascinating.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for her. We began this program by talking about the aftermath of the tragic shooting that took the lives of 5 girls and the gunman. Maybe you've experienced, on a different level, trauma and heartache, but need to find the grace to forgive. Know this, the author of our faith, Jesus Christ, offers the same strength in your moment of trial that He gave to those forgiving Amish families. You can trust Him. If you're new to our program or a regular member of our TV family, drop me a line at joewatkins.org to let me know if this topic and our guest Susan were encouraging to you. I hope they were. From America's first capital, Philadelphia, I'm Joe Watkins, along with my friend Jeff Coleman. Thanks so much for watching. We have so much to learn from the Amish.
The simple life.
The simple life. Yeah. I admire it. I admire it. I admire their forgiveness and their kindness and their work ethic.
Joe Watkins' State of Independence is a production of Lighthouse TV, positively different. Made possible in part because of the support of viewers like you.